Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us during this webinar on choosing the right school for you. My name's Alyssa Dole. I work for the MBA Tour. For those of you that are unfamiliar with the MBA Tour, we are a company that aims to help prospective candidates meet business schools and be matched with the right school for them. We host over 60 events around the world every year. We go to over 40 cities, and we actually have some tours that are approaching in July through October. So definitely go to our website, thembatour.com, to learn more about our events. But right now, I am joined by Linda Abraham. So she is the founder and CEO of Accepted. She's going to be, as I said, she's going to be sharing some tips on, finding the right school for you. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to her. So thanks so much, Linda.
Thank you, Alyssa, and thank you to the MBA Tour for inviting me to present 4 steps to choosing the right school for you. Again, a little bit about me. I'm Linda Abraham, president and founder of Accepted. I've been an MBA admissions consultant for approximately 25 years. A few items to note before we start. We're going to have a contest towards the end of the webinar based solely on content presented during the webinar, so stay tuned. Number two is hand raising. Let's test it. Please raise your hand if you are attending this webinar because you want to attend the right MBA program for you, which will prepare you for the career of your dreams. Now, raising your hands means clicking on the hand icon, 2 icons underneath the horizontal orange arrow. Okay, let's see how you're doing, folks. Most of you are getting it. Okay, great. So I'm going to put down your hands. Great, wonderful. We're going to use the question window for your questions, and I scheduled time for a Q&A at the end of the webinar. I'm also going to use it as an answer window. So if I ask open-ended questions, please post your responses, your answers, in the question window. A little confusing, but it really does work. And if you do have questions in the course of the webinar, just, again, post those in the question window also, and Alyssa and I are going to choose the ones that have the most applicability, and I'll try and address as many as possible at the end. Now, I also want to tell you, this is usually the favorite part of the webinar for most people, and that is that we have a special for the MBA Tour registrants at this webinar. And rather than tease you that I'm going to announce it at the end, I'm going to announce it right now. You can get $100 off your first order of MBA services over $1,000. That offer ends April 23rd, 2019. The coupon code is the coupon code is TMT Get In. Again, TMT Get In is the coupon code. Before diving into the heart of the webinar, I'd also like to learn a little bit about you. So in the question window, where are you located? City and state in the United States, city and country outside the United States. Washington, D.C., okay. Anybody else? Madison, Wisconsin, New York City, East Coast, middle country, Toronto, Canada, Bogota, Colombia, welcome. Okay, got somebody from outside the United States, outside North America. Anybody else want to share where they are? Anybody in California? I'm in California. Alyssa's also in New York. All right, so let's move on. Got a couple of you talking here. First question is, where are you at in the application process? It's going to appear on your screen. Please select the option that best identifies you, right? The options are applying for September 2019 intake, applying for January 2020, or basically round 2, and planning to apply for round 3 of next year or later, okay? Again, the options are applying September 2019 or round 1, applying January 2020 or round 2, or planning to apply for later intakes. We're at 78%. Can we get it above 80? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, with 78% having voted. The answers are 33% are applying round 1, 11% are planning for round 2, and 56% are planning for round 3 or later. Okay, good to know. Keep that in mind. And let's see. And then here we go. Next one. How committed are you to applying to business school? Definitely. The options are definitely, maybe, and doubt it, but you can convince me otherwise. Okay? Definitely, maybe, and doubt it, but you can convince me otherwise. We're at 76% having voted. We got up to 80. Oh, back down to 77. Anybody else want to vote? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to close the poll and share the results. So most of you are pretty definite about applying. 62% are definite, 33% are maybe, and 5% are doubt it. That's pretty much what I expect. Okay. Now again, I just want to remind you that I'll be giving away free consultations at the end of the webinar. So pay attention, because the questions that I'm going to ask, if answered correctly, will earn you the free consultation, and it won't be anything that I'm not presenting. All right? Now, I want to ask you, show of hands, please, here. How many of you have read Dr. Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People? Please raise your hand if you've read that book. Okay. Only 25% of you. I would think more. It's a good book. 29%. We're getting up a little higher. All right. Anybody know, remember, or can look up really fast, what's the second of his 7 habits? And place that in the question window, please. What's the second of his 7 habits? Or look at it, Google it. I'll tell you if you don't tell me. Okay, here we go. Begin with the end in mind. Your MBA studies, like any other worthy project or journey, and it is a journey, should start with your destination, the end, what you want to do after your MBA. That is the starting place for a successful MBA application. The MBA should not be like an aimless drive or directionless like a broken weather vane. It is way too expensive to take that approach. The recruiting for internships starts too early to arrive on campus with no idea or only vague notions of what you want to do professionally. Furthermore, many programs want to admit applicants who have direction and know exactly why and how this program can help them achieve their goals. Now, the MBA tour asks you folks to share questions that I might want to address. One of the questions is, I am a bioengineer. Is the MBA right for me? Frankly, I have no idea. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm a biomedical engineer. Which will be the best B school for an MBA? Well, that's not the right question. I want to become X. Which B school will help me best become X? Given that I'm a biomedical engineer. Far better question. And I'd like to proceed here with a practical, purposeful, 21st century approach to MBA admissions. Today, and you're going to learn that approach, it's 4 steps. That's why we have 4 steps to choosing a business school. And it will not only help you maximize your chances of acceptance, but maximize the likelihood of you getting a great job when you graduate. It maximizes your ROI in a word. We're going to explore each of the 4 basic steps during this webinar. Now, let me ask you again in the question window, when you plan a trip, what is the first item of information you need to know? I basically told you a couple of minutes ago. What do you need to know when you plan a trip? Where you're going, exactly, Antoine. Where you want to go, what's your destination? The same is true with MBA admissions. As I just told you, your starting place is your post-MBA goal. It isn't your past experience, it isn't your job, it isn't your ethnic background, it isn't even your academic stats. You must determine your MBA goal. Begin, as Stephen Covey says, with the end in mind. Now, there are various ways, or there's 2 key elements to defining your post-MBA goal. The first one is function. What do you want to do that you are unlikely to be able to do without an MBA? So some examples. You want to be an investment banker. You want to do investment banking. You want to do consulting. You want to go into brand management. Those are all functions that an MBA prepares you for. And I want you to know that function and industry, and I'm going to get to industry in a minute, are not necessarily topics of studies in MBA programs. They are things you will do after you get your MBA. So you're not going to, you'll study marketing and strategy to become a brand manager. You'll study general management and possibly, some other things, maybe operations, to become a consultant. And you'll study all kinds of areas in finance to become an investment banker. But you're unlikely to study investment banking or consulting or brand management. And then industry is the second critical element in your post-MBA goal. So do you want to be an investment banker focusing on high tech, a consultant focusing on the healthcare industry, manufacturing perhaps in consumer goods, or maybe aerospace, or environmental, or clean energy, or whatever? These are the two essential elements of a post-MBA goal. Again, function and industry. And if you have those two things well defined, then you can show direction. Now, many of you are likely to be career changers, and you may be attempting to change function and industry. The truth is that it is more difficult to change both function and industry in one step via an MBA. It can be done, but you should be prepared to change one or the other first, and then the second one perhaps after your first or second job. So for example, if you want to change function, you may want to stay in the industry. If you're a biomedical engineer and you want to move into brand management or general management, you probably would be better off staying in biomedical engineering to make that switch. If you want to stay in the same function, maybe corporate finance, and you're now doing it, I don't know, in aerospace engineering, and you want to move to high tech and software, again, that might be something that you can easily do, and then perhaps move up into a CFO position ultimately in your new industry. Location sometimes plays a role in defining what you want to do. You want to work on Wall Street, clearly that's Wall Street. If you want to work in emerging markets, this location is important to you. You may want to live in the city where your family lives, or a location where your significant other has a job or simply wants to live. And for some of you, weather and climate are going to play a role in where you want to ultimately live, and to a certain extent where you want to choose schools. Now, at this point, I have a poll for you. And I'd like you to tell me, I haven't seen my slides. I'd like you to tell me which best describes your goal, okay? Or where you're at in terms of defining your goal. You have a goal that you can define in terms of function and industry. You have a goal that is fuzzy, or you know you want an MBA, but you don't really know what your goal is. Again, the options are, I have a goal I can define in terms of function and industry. I have a goal that is fuzzy, and I know I want an MBA, but I don't know what I want to do after. Okay, we're at 69% having voted. Anybody else want to vote? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to close the poll and share the results. 27% of you have a goal that you can define in terms of function and industry. 31% have a goal that is fuzzy. 42% know you want an MBA but don't know what you want to do after. That means that well over 2/3 of you really don't know what your post-MBA goal is. We're going to discuss what you should do to clarify it, but I think that's something that you really need to address before you apply. You can address it and still apply in the 2019-2020 cycle, even round one, but you do need to clarify it as you go forward. All right. Now, if your goal is fuzzy, then I suggest you research professional options to clarify what you want to do, just as you would do if you're going on a vacation or journey. You'll research what to see. My husband and I are hoping to take a trip next month, and I was researching what on the way to our final destination was worth looking at and visiting. And some of you may be thinking that it's going to, you should figure out your goal while you're in business school, kind of like while you're on the road. Certainly in terms of MBA admissions, that's a really bad idea. Many top programs want to see the kind of direction that I'm talking about, and they view it as much as a qualification, really, for admission as a good GMAT score, a high GPA, or meteoric career progression. So here's some quotes from two admissions directors. These were both part of interviews for Admissions Straight Talk, which is Accepted's podcast. And you can access this podcast later if you want the full thing. This is on admissions at Michigan Ross, .com/185.
Oh, Linda, just sorry.
Yes. All right, I forgot to hide the thing again. Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Okay, so there's the quote. What makes an application really stand out for you? And the response is people who seem to really know what they want and know themselves and who can articulate it well. They can connect the dots. Thank you very much, Alyssa. Now, some of you are, so if you think that you're going to figure out your goal when you're in school, I don't think you'd get past Sujin Kwan at Ross. And as a matter of fact, I don't think you'd get into Tuck either, because Tuck has, again, this is from a podcast interview I did with Luke Pena, their admissions director, and he said, aware Tuck candidates envision what's ahead. You connect your past experiences and present motivations with your future path and chart a course forward. Well, you can't do that if you don't have a future path. And I have to tell you that I hear this thought again and again when I speak with admissions directors, whether either when I speak with them at the conferences I attend or when I speak with them as part of Admissions Straight Talk interviews. Now, let me ask you, think about it a second, and I'd like the answer in the question window. Why is it important to schools that you have a clear purpose to your MBA studies? Why don't they just collect your tuition? In the question window, please. Think about that for a second. Why do they care what you want to do after you get your degree? Why do they care? Anybody? Career placement statistics? That's part of it, Alex, because you're going to represent the school. Good, Antoine? That's good. I think the basic reason is they want to make sure you're going to do things that will make them look good. That's part of it, Raul. To be sure that your profile fits the school's value. Excellent. That's certainly part of it. The basic thing is, I think the basic reason is they want to know that they can help you succeed. And if you don't have a goal, there is no criteria for success. There's no way to assess if your studies achieve their purpose. You didn't have one. Admittedly, not all schools ask about goals. MIT hasn't for years. Some schools, HBS, also hasn't asked about it. However, I'm going to argue that those goals are important even if schools don't ask for them. Why are they important? How can you spend over $100,000 out of pocket and 2 years of your life, not to mention the lost income from those 2 years, without a good reason for doing so? Something concrete, something you want to accomplish. Now, I hope I've convinced you that your goals should guide you in terms of school choice. However, clear goals will help you when you arrive on campus also. Internships are important steps toward your first permanent position post-MBA. And as I mentioned earlier, recruiting for internships starts within weeks of your arrival on campus. You need focus and direction when you land at your dream program to hit the ground running for the internship search, because a good internship frequently leads to a good full-time job. And these goals will help you determine where to invest your time and energy, and which classes to choose, where to invest your time and energy in extracurricular activities. So this is what I want to do post-MBA is your goal, is your destination. It's the opposite of that broken weather vane spinning aimlessly that I mentioned earlier. Again, I'm suggesting a purpose-driven approach to MBA application. So if your goals are fuzzy or non-existent, you need to clarify those goals before you choose schools. How should you clarify your goals? Analyze deeply what you have done and liked and what you have done and disliked. Don't limit yourself to work. Examine extracurricular activities and community service also. Talk to mentors and people whose judgment you trust. Request informational interviews from people in positions that you believe appeal to you. Ask them what they like and dislike about their job. Ask them what is a typical day, or if they have a typical day. Ask them if they have and value the MBA. Ask them for educational recommendations, both in terms of degree, what schools they would recommend, classes that they found particularly valuable or a tremendous waste of time. And the last point before we move to step two, step two in the 4-step process. What about more visionary or greater goals, what accepted consultant likes to call goals plus? This would be something that you want to accomplish beyond supporting yourself or family or simply having a satisfying and gratifying career. That's great. You can certainly have some greater goal as part of your motivation to earn an MBA, but at the same time, be realistic. If you're earning far more now than you are likely to make in this dream career, your dream may not pass the realism smell test. If your dream career doesn't financially justify the cost of your education, again, it may not pass the realism smell test. It might. I've seen circumstances where it does, but if the dream is an outgrowth of a more grounded goals or actual experience, or perhaps something that you can do in parallel to your rewarding career, and it is realistic, you will certainly pass that realism smell test. Now, step one means you have a clear goal, you have that destination. Step two is determining which schools will help you achieve it. So step two really is researching the schools. What should you look for when you research schools? What do you think in the question windows, please? Adelia, no, it's not wrong to change your goals while completing your MBA. It happens all the time. And again, in the question window, what should you look for when you're trying to decide if the school is right for you? Academic specialties, good. Program, coursework, teachers, good. Aligned with my goals or not? Excellent, Colette. That's kind of what I'm looking for. Placement percentage, good, good. Alumni industry placement, good. Connections and chosen career path, okay, you guys are getting it. All right, good, good, definitely. All right, I think the first thing to look at is where do graduates get jobs, right? That's a destination again. Which schools support your goals? So you're going to want to check the school's employment reports. You're going to talk to alumni. The second thing that you're going to want to look at very closely is the curriculum. What are you going to study and how does this school teach it? Are there classes and special programs that support your goal? Certificates, concentrations, immersions? Are there professors that are doing cutting-edge research closely related to what you're interested in? And then there's also the question of method of instruction, pedagogy. What approach appeals to you? Case method, like at Harvard and Darden, experiential learning, strongly emphasized by Ross and Haas and NYU Stern and more just in general. Lecture, a combination of the above. And there's, of course, a lot of learning goes on in business school and extracurricular activities. Are there clubs and activities that related to your specific interests and goals? What could those be? Again, clubs are one. Competitions, venture capital competitions, social enterprise competitions, if that's your interest. Conferences related to your interests. Active student groups. A lot of times you'll go to a school and look up a club, but if you inquire, it's dormant. Make sure it's active. Are there treks? Both related to the industries that you're interested in, industry and functions, but primarily industries. These are organized around overseas study opportunities, if that's important to you. Those are things that you should be looking at and seeing if the schools you're applying to have what supports your goals. And then there is the issue of just plain old ordinary personal preferences related to location, student body makeup, the needs of your significant other and family. And be honest with yourself, especially when it comes to the whole issue of being with people like you, however you define that, okay? Do you want to Is it important to you that there be a group of people that are like you at your new program? Or do you want to branch out? Do you want to stretch and move out of that very much cliched comfort zone? Again, be honest with yourself. This is a personal choice. And how should you research schools? I see somebody's asking about rankings. Well, that's part of what I'm going to be discussing. How would you start researching schools? In the question window, please. Where are you going to look? Financial Times, okay. That's one ranking source, that's fine. Anybody else? Are you going to do anything besides look at the rankings? Where else are you going to go? GMAT scores, I would research the school site. Excellent. That's exactly what I was looking at. Anything else? School website, good. All right, I'm going to go on now. Start with the easy steps that you can take. Check out specialty rankings for the fields that interest you. The rankings, are they reliable? They're reliable in the sense that I believe the ranking agencies get data and analyze it reliably. Most of the time, the data from the schools is reliable, so that part is generally considered to be reliable. What isn't reliable is, do the rankings really reflect what's important to you as an individual in a business school? Highly unlikely. So while the rankings are treasure troves of data, the rankings themselves are less valuable, with the exception of being some kind of overall reflection of reputation. But don't focus on the rankings. I think the specialty rankings have some value, more so than actually the general ones. And the other thing is, while I think that it's okay to start with the rankings, I think they're a terrible place to end your research. Definitely explore thoroughly the websites of the schools that support your goals, keeping in mind your qualifications, which we're going to examine in just a second, okay? And then talk to current students and alumni. You can reach out to them via the schools, sometimes via LinkedIn, and of course, we're at the MBA Tour. Right? This is a webinar sponsored by the MBA Tour. Attend MBA fairs and events. Hello, this is what we're here, right? This is what this organization is about. They're excellent places for you to learn about schools, talk to admissions representatives, sometimes talk to students, and then for the schools that you're really, really serious about, visit them if at all possible. The best time to visit is when class is in session, so you can sit down on a class and you can meet with students and again interact and talk to them. If that's not possible, make sure you go when there is an information session so you can ask questions and get information. If students are around, yes, talk to them. Approach them in a friendly, respectful way. Sometimes people ask if they should visit before they apply or only when invited to interview. Now, visiting before you apply will give you insight and perspective that will help you decide whether to apply and how to answer any why this school essay questions or interview questions. However, it's not always practical or economically feasible. And again, then go to the MBA Tour fairs and go to school receptions that are located near wherever it is that you live. The answer to whether you should visit schools is really a matter of budget and time and distance. And I recommend it if at all possible. Remember, you wouldn't buy a condo or house for $200,000, which is what, with opportunity cost, the MBA is likely to cost you, without seeing it. You wouldn't even buy a car without seeing it or test driving it. So if it's possible to arrange the visit, I highly recommend it for those schools that you're most interested in. Again, begin with the end in mind. Achieving that professional end is the reason for this whole exercise. And you probably, if you've gone through the steps I'm recommending, you will probably have a good idea now of the schools you would like to attend. And that's very much a focus on your future, and that's fine. But of course, this application process isn't quite that simple. It's not just a matter of determining where you want to go. The question then becomes, where are you competitive? And for that, we need to switch gears a little bit. The first two steps have focused on what you want in the school, and they have had very much a future focus. But they've been pretty much about what you want and what the schools can do for you. Now you need to consider what the schools want in applicants, to a certain extent, what you can do for the school in terms of its reputation. To be an effective applicant, you need to apply to schools that support your goals and are likely to accept you. To determine the latter point, you have to look at your past and you have to evaluate your qualifications. If you apply exclusively to schools where you are not competitive, you are probably wasting a lot of time and money. So you need to either improve your qualifications or change the schools that you're applying to if there is a mismatch. Now, what are some of the qualifications that schools are looking for? In the question window, please. What makes up your qualifications? Work experience. Good, Amber. I'm so glad somebody put work experience before GMAT or GRE. Upward career progression. Excellent, Antoine. What else? GPA, GMAT, extracurriculars, work experience. Good, Maura. Good. Why choosing our school? Good, Colin. Good. Good. Good group. All right. So let's examine your qualifications. The first, and there's no real first or priority, I'm going to go in this order. Academic competitiveness is kind of the easiest to assess. And that would consist of your GMAT or GRE. And you can compare what you have to the school's class profile. And hopefully you'll be above the average. If you're below average, you may be wondering especially about the GMAT or the GRE. If you're competitive, should you retake the GMAT or GRE? And I had a whole webinar on that that I gave recently. I think I'll be giving it again shortly. And you can view the recording or sign up for the upcoming webinar. Yes, the focus is on the GMAT, but the logic applies to the GRE also. You can also, and then of course there's grades. Now, again, you can look at the grades on the class profile and compare your GPA to the average GPA. If your GPA is, I would say, 0.3 or more below the school's average, then this is a rough guideline. I go into much more on that, and there's much more to it than just that, but that's a very fuzzy guideline again. Then I think you would be wise to attempt to mitigate that low GPA. You can do so either with additional degrees like a master's, but that's a pretty expensive and time-consuming way to do so. Certifications like the CPA or the CFA, post classes that you take in addition and earn A's in will help. I also did do a podcast. This was myself, exib.com/137, 5 A's for your low GPA. And there I went into tremendous detail on what you can do if you feel your GPA is low for your target schools. The other thing that you will need to do is address circumstances that surrounded the low grades. And context is king there, okay? You want to show that your circumstances have changed and they either no longer exist or are no longer affecting your performance. Many of you very wisely said that work experience is one of the qualifications that schools are going to be looking at, and you're right. And I'd like to see a show of hands now. How many of you, let me get over here. Let's put all the hands down first. How many of you think quantity of work experience is more important than quality? Please raise your hand if you think that quantity is more important than quality in evaluating work experience. Uh-oh, this thing ran away from me. Okay, nobody's raising their hand. We got a really good group. Nobody raised their hand. Okay, how many of you, raise your hand, if you think that quality is more important than quantity? Okay, all right, we're at 40% with quality. And the last one is how many of you think both are important? Trick question, I know. How many of you think both are important? Okay, actually quality won, which surprised me because I'm definitely in the both are important camp. Everyone tends to focus on quantity. And I think that's a little bit of a mistake. Yes, 3 to 6 years of work experience, full-time work experience is the sweet spot. A little bit more flexibility on the upper end. But obviously, people can do all kinds of things for 3 to 6 years and not qualify for a top MBA program. So quality is equally or more important. And quality means above average growth and progression on the job, leadership experience in multiple settings, sometimes on and off the job, increasing responsibility and impact. How have you made a difference? If you want, go see the old Jimmy Stewart movie, It's a Wonderful Life. How have you made a difference? There's also community service. Now, why is community service important to schools? And more importantly, let's forget why it's important to schools. What opportunity does community service give you? In the question window, please. What opportunity does community service give you as an applicant? Leadership, exactly. Ooh, you are good. Networking opportunities, that's true too. It gives you leadership. It gives you the opportunity to show that you're a person who is going to make a difference. It also gives you the opportunity, if you're contributing to your community now, however you define it, it leads the school to believe that you're going to contribute to their community if they let you into it. And then there's another factor that I think is important and sometimes overlooked, and that is what I like to call the why admit you factor. What will you distinctively add to class? And this is kind of hard to address because you don't always know your competition, and you don't necessarily know the distinctiveness of your competition. But you know that every client I've ever talked to has a story. Every client has something that's distinctive about them. It's easier to show that if you come from a non-traditional background or an underrepresented group. It's a little bit harder to address if you come from an overrepresented group. But everybody has that and can do it. It's something that we work with our clients a lot on. If you're from a less represented group, please don't assume that your underrepresented status is going to compensate for all weaknesses or a lack of competitiveness. There are a lot of excellent, highly qualified, and accomplished candidates from underrepresented groups. In other words, don't be cocky. If you're from an overrepresented group, you still have to show this quality. It's a little harder, but you can do it. And I'm going to, I think, help you show some of the ways that you can do it. And I'd like to do that through a little thought experiment. Let me get a piece of paper here. Okay, can you please raise your hand if you have volunteered in college or since? Raise your hand if you volunteered in any capacity in college or since. You guys awake? Okay, 25, 28%. Okay, not that many of you. All right. How many of you have led a group, team, or organization? Please raise your hand if you've led a group, team, or organization in college or at work. How many of you have led a group, team, or organization? I'm asking you to click on that hand icon. Okay, we're at 33%. How many of you exercise regularly in any, it can be running, swimming, dancing, jazzercise, yoga, whatever, just regular exercise. Hiking is my favorite. Okay, we're about 30%. All right, next set of questions. So the 28% of you volunteer, 33% have led at some point in time, and 30% of you exercise. Now I'd like a show of hands again. How many of you teach for junior achievement? 5%, okay? How many of you led a get out the vote effort during or since 2016? 0. Okay. How many of you ran a half marathon on behalf of your favorite charity and raised $5,000 for it? A 5K, yeah, a half marathon, sorry. All right, we got 2%. And how many of you did none of the above? Okay, that's where the hands are going up. Yeah, okay. What's the difference between the first set of questions and the second set of questions? In the question window, please. In the question window, what's the difference between the first set of questions and the second set of questions? The second set was much more specific, group versus individual. That's right. Showing impact. Well, it was more about specificity versus general. And what happens when I ask specific questions? When I talk in specifics, or when you write in specifics, what happens? That's right, Skylar. What happens when I'm specific? In the question window, please. Fewer people, right. Fewer people are going to be like you if you write in specifics or talk in specifics. You are more authentic. You could be authentic in either case. Authentic means that you're telling the truth, but you're more distinctive. Finding a needle in a haystack, excellent. You're more distinctive when you talk or write in specifics. So specifics are key, even if you're from an overrepresented group. Specifics are key to writing about, in a way that differentiates you. Writing or talking about this. This is true of essays as well as interviews. So what do you specialize in your work? Are you a consultant or an environmental consultant or a healthcare consultant? What are your non-professional interests? What are your distinctive experiences? Your non-cliched perspective on events and your experiences. These are ways that you can all distinguish yourself in a very authentic and meaningful way that will help you get accepted. And again, this is something that we do work with our clients on very much. So we've gone through the 3 steps, right? 1, determine your goal. 2, research the schools. 3, evaluate your qualifications. Now you come to step 4, which is actually choosing your target programs. It all comes together here. This simple Venn diagram really portrays how you select the schools. You're going to choose schools that you want to attend because they support your goals and that are likely to want you. And the overlap, the intersection between these 2 circles is where you want to apply. Of the schools that support your goals, those are over here. Where are you competitive? That's in this sweet spot. You'd want to end up with a list of 4 to 8 programs, ideally, that are pretty much in here. If you want to be a little more adventurous, then I would definitely go to 8. If you're applying more conservatively, over here, and this, I should be using here, let me get the spotlight. If you're applying more over here in this area, you can probably maybe do 3 or 4 schools. If you're applying more over here, then you should do closer to 8 schools. If you want to apply to schools where acceptance is less likely, then I recommend applying to more programs, but always include at least some programs where your chances of acceptance are really pretty strong, or be willing to reapply at another time, and perhaps then be a little bit more conservative. You may also want to consider applying round 1 to your higher risk programs, and then those would be the ones more in this range, and then round 2, you're going to want to be more over here, okay? But be realistic to maximize your chances of success the first time around. Now, applying to appropriate programs is a route to acceptance. Guided by self-knowledge, school research, and a clear understanding of your professional and educational goals, you're going to maximize your chances of acceptance and choose the right schools. And that's the foundation of a successful MBA application. The MBA application journey is likely to continue after you arrive at your perfect MBA choices through essay, recommendation, and interview land. And if luck shines upon you and you presented yourself effectively, you can even visit the kingdom of multiple acceptances or the land of scholarships. Now, to help you arrive at these wonderful places, I have some free resources for you. They're on your screen now. And a special offer of accepted services. I mentioned that at the beginning, I'll repeat it now. But before I get to that, I'd like to know, in the question window, what is the most useful idea or element or concept that I presented to you in this webinar so far? We will get to Q&A in a minute. What have you found to be most valuable so far? Structured thinking. Thank you, Antoine. Start with the end in mind. Good. Well, that was the point I wanted to make. So thank you again. How to research schools and a question to ask alums. Knowing your goal first, function in industry. Great. Anybody else? The Venn diagram, end goal. Okay, great. You're explaining how specific we must be when telling admissions about ourselves. Thank you. Emphasis on key points. Why do they want me? Good. Know your qualifications. Specificity. Great. Okay, good. Good. I'm glad. Anybody else found what was, again, the most valuable thing that you found here? But this is wonderful feedback for me. I appreciate it. Okay, I'd like you to imagine yourself, and you may want to jot down these URLs so that after the Q&A you can grab some of these resources. I'd like you to imagine yourself a year or two from now, but instead of being at the MBA Tour webinar, you're at an admit weekend at one of your top choice schools, perhaps having received a scholarship for a meaningful chunk of tuition. That's what we accepted would like to help you achieve with one-on-one individual advising. The advice I gave today is the best advice I could provide to a group to answer the question of how to choose where to apply. But acceptance consultants can do so much more and with so much greater specificity when we work with applicants individually. We can help you choose the best programs for you, highlight your strengths in your application, help you mitigate your weaknesses, prepare you for interviews, and even respond to waitlists and multiple offers. With your professional future at stake, you should take a professional approach and turn to acceptance experts with years of experience in the field. They can guide you, answer your questions, provide needed constructive criticism, and help you put your best foot forward. They can mentor you through the process. In addition to improving your chances of acceptance, having an accepted mentor at your side can save you time and reduce your stress. And we're going to put our money where our mouth is by giving you a $100 discount on any service order of $1,000 or more purchased by April 23rd, 2019. That's roughly a week. Coupon code is TMT, get in. The MBA Tour, get in. Now, some may say accepted is expensive, and we're definitely not a cheap service because of the quality of our staff. However, they're also expensive and less clearly defined risks associated with not using accepted. Reapplication, well, at $250 per application, which is a pretty common application fee. There are some a little less and a little more. You can easily spend a couple of $1,000s applying, and you might have to retake the GRE or GMAT. There's one additional year of pre-MBA earnings that can cost in the 5 figures in dollars. And there's a potential that you could have gotten into a better program with higher lifelong earnings and network, and that could cost you 5 or even 6 figures. Now, enough from me. What do our clients say? On the left, Libby, we made it. Finally submitted both applications on time. Thank you so much for your amazing effort and support on both applications. I will definitely keep you posted on my status on all 3. He was later accepted to Harvard, Stanford, and Wharton with a distinctly below average GMAT. Or the one on the right, I really appreciate the wishes. Congratulations on prior acceptance to Duke. Here's a cherry on the sundae. I just got a call from MIT Sloan. I was accepted. MIT is definitely my first choice. Frankly, it was my moonshot application. Think of that Venn diagram of being all the way on the right. Never would have thought that it would actually work out. To access the expertise that these applicants have benefited from, take the following steps. Visit exhibit.com/TMT, choose the service that's right for you, get the guidance you need, and apply confidently and and effectively. And now I'm happy to take your questions. Okay, so you can post them in the question window. Let's see. There were some questions that were sent in earlier.
Linda, I have a question that I think is an important one that was actually sent in earlier.
Sure.
Um, is it wrong to change your goals while completing your MBA?
No, it happens all the time. But that doesn't relieve you of the obligation to have a goal when you apply. Schools know that you're going to be entering a whole new environment with new ideas, new people, new opportunities, and there's nothing wrong with changing your direction while you're there. But that's very different from arriving with no direction. So you're not signing a contract that you're going to do what you say you're going to do in your why MBA essay. That's okay to change your goals. But the fact that you go through this exercise of determining your goal means that you're applying with a good reason, you have a thoughtful, purposeful approach to the whole application process, and that you'll know how to do it again if something excites you and catches your attention while in business school. Okay? Let's see if we have some of the questions are coming in now. This is a great question. Antoine, thank you. How do you differentiate schools when all the schools seem to have similar program descriptions? That's a really good question. And it's kind of funny because schools sometimes say we have such a hard time distinguishing between applicants. They all write the same stuff in their essays. But what you're going to be looking for is what you, let's assume now that you have a specific goal. Do you mind, would you be willing to share it or not? You should think about, if you're willing to share, okay, please share it. What do you want to do post-MBA, Antoine? Do you know? Market access and pharmaceuticals. All right, market access could mean that you want to, not, so you would want to presumably work go to a school that has good connections either to pharmaceutical consulting firms or strategy consulting firms that tend to consult with pharmaceutical companies, or work for pharmaceutical companies themselves, or maybe bioengineering companies. So you're going to look at schools that have good placement in those industries. So for example, Vanderbilt, I believe, places 18% of its graduates in healthcare, with a good number of them going into pharmaceuticals. That's number one. Find out the schools that are going to have placement at the companies you want to work for, or in the industry you want to work for. Then look at the curriculum. Do they have the classes you want to take? Do they teach them in ways you want to learn? They're not all the same curriculums. Take a look at Harvard's curriculum. Is very different from Stanford's, is very different from Ross's, different from Columbia, different from NYU, different from Booth. They're all different. So look at the curriculum and think, where am I going to be happy here? Look at the course catalog. Do the things that I was recommending a little earlier in talking about how to choose schools. And think about, where are you going to be happy? Do you care about climate? Do you have a significant other that you want to consider in the process? Have a conversation with that individual. And those are the things that you're going to be, in terms of the website. Again, also, if certain activities are important to you, are they going to, do they have treks to pharmaceutical companies? Is there a company, a biotech club on campus that's active? Those are the kinds of things that you're going to be looking to. So don't just look at the overall descriptions of the schools, dig a little deeper, and perhaps look for people who perhaps worked at your company and are now in different schools. Are they learning what you want to learn? Are they happy? Are they enjoying the experience? Has it lived up to their expectations? Those are the kinds of things. Thank you very much for the excellent question. All right, you're welcome. Let's see. High school academics are completely irrelevant. when you're applying to graduate school. Khaled, that was your question. The question was, what's the emphasis on high school academics and can they be a deal breaker for applying? They are completely irrelevant. Whether good or bad, they are irrelevant. Don't even bring up high school. Let's see what else we have. Denitsa asked, how do you choose between offers? Are scholarships more important or the right fit is more important? That's a good question, and that's it depends kind of question. If it depends on the size of the offer. It depends on how good or bad the fit is. If the scholarship offer is relatively small, and the fit at the school that doesn't offer you a scholarship is excellent, where the one that offering you the scholarship is not so good, then I would pay the extra money. If the scholarship is really significant, like I don't know, $100,000, and both schools, because you did apply purposefully, will support your goals, then I would take the money. I'd save the money. So that's really an it depends kind of question. But again, if you're guided by that goal and you've done the research appropriately, then you shouldn't be in a situation where the fit isn't right at all. The question is, it just may be a little bit better or a little bit worse. And then you just kind of weigh up the money. Okay? All right. Augustine, I'm not sure I understand your question. You're welcome. You're welcome, Denitsa. Having selected your B schools when the MBA tour is recommended to do? I'm not sure I understand the question. Can you try and clarify that one, Augustine? I'm sorry. Let's see. Any more questions? Is it true that asking for financial aid from the beginning can hurt your chances of being admitted? Most schools are need blind, so it shouldn't. Certainly, most top U.S. MBA programs don't consider. They assume that most people are going to need financial aid. That very few people pay for it out of pocket. Okay, so thank you for that question. All right. When is the best time to visit the school? Some people go to visit during the application. That was a question that I addressed in the webinar, but I'll try and address it briefly now. The best time to go visit, absolute best time to go visit, is when you've narrowed your choices down somewhat and before it comes time to apply. Because then you can confirm that this is indeed the right school for you, or at least have greater degree of confidence. You can also get information that will make it easier for you to answer the why this school question that's a part of many, many applications, and also that will be asked most likely in an interview. So if at all possible, visit the school while they're in session and before you apply. In other words, for those planning to apply round one, the academic year ends at many schools in May, so you basically kind of have to go now. If you can't, that's the best time. If you can't visit now, then I would suggest waiting till the late summer or fall when they're back in session. Some people only visit if invited to interview. Again, that is a kind of cost-benefit analysis and something that you have to weigh up individually. And I did go eat. I think the MBA tour is going to be sending out a recording, so you can view the recording, and I went to that a little bit more before. We also had a question that I thought was interesting that was sent in, and I would love to know the process of cost-benefit analysis on why an MBA makes sense to do based on the potential ROI. All right, in my book, this was an interesting question. The cost of the MBA is the tuition and fees, the out-of-pocket expenses. I personally would not include living expenses in that, because living expenses are something you're going to have to pay regardless of whether you do an MBA or not. Plus your opportunity cost, the lost income for the 2 years. That's your cost. The increased earnings, your anticipated increase in pay, which you can glean from employment reports, would show you, give you some idea of return on investment and how fast your payback period is going to be. In addition, if some of you are in jobs that you don't like and feel that your post-MBA job is just going to be a much more satisfying job for you, you should calculate that in. Now, it's hard to put a dollar figure on it, but that also counts, and it should be part of your calculation. At this point in time, I want to thank you. I want to give thanks first to Elisa and the MBA Tour for hosting this webinar. I want to thank you, applicant friends, for your time, your questions, your answers, and your attention. As we close, please remember the 4 steps that I discussed today. Determine your post-MBA goal. That's your destination and really your key guide in this whole thing. Research the schools to determine which ones will best help you achieve that goal. Evaluate your qualifications so you apply to those schools that will not only help you achieve your goal, but are likely to accept you. And remember to act on the concepts you found most useful. Many of you mentioned that towards the end, and take advantage this week of the special offer Accepted has made. Again, I'm going to highlight it. It's right here. And good luck with your applications. You're very welcome.
All right. Thank you so much, Linda. I just wanted to reiterate that, yes, we will be sending around a recording of the webinar. So for those of you that couldn't catch the whole thing, then we will definitely be sending that around. So thank you so much for participating, and we hope to see you at a future MBA Tour event. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.